Okay, we are now live. This is for our practicum 445 class, and I am Tara Clark.
I'm Stephanie Willis.
And I'm Katie Cook.
Okay, and we're going to go ahead and discuss some of our questions that we have covered over the last few weeks, and also some of the things that we've thought about through our learning. Okay, should we go ahead and just start at week 1?
Yeah,
sure.
Okay. Do one of you guys have yours right in front of you? I'm pulling mine up right now.
I can start.
Yeah.
All right. So I the first week, I kind of felt like was kind of talking about taking family life education to the masses and kind of deciding how you would want to do that personally. And some of the reflective questions talked about that. And for me, I think the best way that would help me get involved would be either to register with NCFR or to be something where I could have some education or backing that I would feel confident enough to be able to take it to people and give them good scholarly information and not just be like, oh yeah, I'm a mom and I've done this, for 2 kids and that's all I have. So I would think for me, confidence-wise, that would be the best way to be able to register with NCFR and be educated on some kind of level there. It also helps, obviously, to have a degree in marriage and family, so that always helps. Let's see, a strength that I think I would be able to provide to FLE programs would be just that I'm passionate about families and being able to strengthen them. I don't think, if you're not passionate about something, I don't think you'll be able to get people to pay attention to you or even listen to what you're trying to say. And so I think if you're passionate about something, that's your first key to be able to teach others about it. I've had to learn that through teaching dance, just because I'm a ballet teacher and I teach at other jazz studios and things, and jazz students or ballroom students or hip hop students just really aren't all that interested in ballet. And so if I'm not passionate about ballet, then they're not going to feel that and they're not going to be interested in what I have to tell them and what I have to teach them. So that's something that I've learned just by trying to teach others something that I'm passionate about. The last thing on this one that I have is if you don't have scholarly information, bringing fake data basically to the FLE programs. I feel like that's the same as anything. If you're just trying to promote fake data to make money, it's not going to help anybody. It's not going to help the community. I feel like this kind of goes with healthy eating or exercise programs that people get on and just kind of say whatever they want to say, bananas aren't healthy this week, but they're going to be healthy next week or something. Real data, it's just someone's opinion. It's not going to help anybody and it's not going to do anything for anybody. And I think the best FLE programs that are out there for marriages and things are Gottman's marriage studies and programs that he's developed, because he has sound research that he's done himself. He's done it for years, and that's something that you need in any FLE program. So yeah,
that's great. I agree. I was thinking about that because as I was reading about marketing myself and some of the ways that are to present yourself this last week, one of the big things that I realized was having statistics, having numbers would actually help in the marketing process of marketing my class, and how important it is that I have those accurate numbers. And so I'm searching for some of those things right now. And not everything that would be so helpful has been researched and studied. And so I don't have access to everything, but it also opens my mind to what might need to be studied in the future, and some things that I might want to look into myself and do a little bit more in-depth preparation. Maybe not for this class, but for myself as a marriage and family. I'm going into marriage and family counseling is what I'm doing. So I'm really looking more one-on-one. And but I'm just going back. As I read through the FLE stuff and learned a little bit more about what I'm going to be doing and also what this class is requiring, I realized that one of the greatest gifts I have that's going to help me with this process is the fact that I'm a really good public speaker. I know that sounds funny, but I've always known that if I prepare myself, I do well in front of people and I connect well with other people. And I think that once I can get people into my class, they will want to come back because I do put a lot of effort in and I make a lot of connection. And I think as a marriage and family major, I undersell myself a little bit. Do you guys find that you do that sometimes? Like people will say, "Oh, what are you studying?" And you're like, "Marriage and family." like somehow that means it's a lesser degree than someone who's saying maybe going into business. And I have learned so much. I'm in my second to last semester. Next semester I just have my internship, and I know a lot of what I'm talking about. And when I speak up and I have an opinion on something that relates to the family, I know what I'm discussing. And that is what this class is giving us an opportunity to do, is it's giving us a platform to be able to discuss those things with other people. And I think that's a talent that those of us who are in the later years of being a marriage and family major have to offer. And that was really important to me as I was putting that together.
For sure. Yeah.
And have you noticed the conversations? How long have you guys been doing this? The marriage and family studies?
2013.
Okay.
Let's see. Yeah, mine would be about 2013, 14.
Yeah. Have you noticed every time we bring up how we sell ourselves short? But on top of that, I've noticed that almost everybody I talk to have felt like it has been a calling to go specifically into this study.
Yeah.
And I think we talked about that, Tara. Did we think about it, or talk? Was it you that I was talking about? Yeah. So it's interesting how on one hand we do hesitate to say marriage and family studies, and yet we feel like it's a calling. And so I feel like we've got this little angel over here on our shoulder and this little devil trying to slow us down and, like being proud of this family marriage and studies, because it's unfortunate that nobody understands the extent to what we are learning, especially in policies today and in the government and all that kind of stuff. So
well, and I feel like so my daughter had to listen to the debate on Monday, the presidential debate for one of her classes. And as I was sitting there with my kids and we were talking about things, I realized that a lot of my opinions were slanted by things that I had learned through my marriage and family classes, not just from my religious faith or through my own personal political beliefs, but also through the things that I'd learned in these classes. It is slanting all of my beliefs. It's changing things. And the information we have is so valuable and people don't know it. They don't understand it because most people don't realize how important the family is to our society. We're definitely undereducated as far as advocating for our families.
When it talks about that in the reading, doesn't it, where it talks about how it's basically still just important to FLE educators and no one else is getting how important it is, and that's why it's so hard to actually get programs.
In this week's reading, they said the people who understand how important it is are the educators. And it's like, yes, that's how I feel.
I'm so glad you brought that up because ever since I started school, well, even before I started school, I was heavily involved in the political side and policy stuff. And I went to Utah to the World Congress of Families.
Oh, cool.
And we heard stories, you have people from all over the world and all these countries, and they're saying what they're doing in their countries, they're doing at community levels and national levels and international levels. But every single speaker that was done after 5 days, they said it does not matter if you don't start in your own families. And I thought that really put on the mark how important an FLE person is because we are preventative. If we're preventative in the family structure, we're doing half of what they have to do in what they're doing. We've already prevented it, and I thought, okay, I need to take this serious at this small level.
Mm-hmm.
So true.
And one of my favorite quotes was in a video we had to watch in one of our classes called The Demographic Winter. Have you guys watched that yet?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the quote, I'm quoting it all the time. I quote it all the time, but it's family creates cultures and cultures create civilizations. And And on my last class, if you guys have taken Family 460, it really helps you to research and those, yeah, we had to write papers just on statistics all the time and find those percentages and studies.
I'm in
Really
that right
phenomenal
now,
program.
actually.
Yeah.
It's a fun class.
Yeah. So I like what you
It
said.
definitely stretched me.
Yeah. Tara, you said it really helps if you open up with statistics first so people realize how the families are affecting society and how important it is to strengthen our families.
Mm.
And that kind of leads me into chapter 2, just because the first question that it asked about was, when you think about the family life education, what would you like to provide, family education you would like to provide, whether or not, or whether now or in the future, what level of prevention most closely corresponds to your interests.
Right.
And as I was thinking about that question, one of the biggest things that came to me was some of the statistics. Marriage is so close to my heart. My husband and I come from very extremely different backgrounds, and it was hard. We kind of both had this idea that we would get married and it would solve all the problems. And my mom said she never saw a couple who was dating that fought as much as we did. I mean, you would never have thought. Here we are, 19 and a half years later, and we're still married, and we love each other, but it was a hard road. I joke and say I went on my own eat, pray, love journey, but my husband came with me. I didn't leave him behind. He came along for the ride. And it is difficult when you're blending two families together. So marriage is something that is so dear to my heart because I've had to work so hard for it. And the statistics on marriage are really scary for me, especially for people who are on a second or third marriage and when they have children involved in their life situations. So that is really what is motivating me on my topic, is I want to help the married families. My husband, his parents, his mom had been married 5 times and his dad had been married 3. And so his whole view of marriage was completely skewed by these relationships that he had seen his whole life through. And I, on the other hand, had, Molly Mormon parents that were really relaxed about stuff. And so he would be like adamant, we're going to do something because we're not going to fail on our marriage. And I'd be like, yeah, we're good. And so we just, to find that balance has brought me a lot of joy. I chose this semester to take along with this class. I had one extra elective class I had to take, and I chose to take the communications conflict management class.
Yeah.
And I have been so grateful. I'm really enjoying this class. And one of the big things that they're teaching us is how conflict is good. And and that conflict doesn't always mean like bashing each other and fighting. It can mean having a disagreement and finding a common purpose. And I am loving that because I feel like that is what I have learned to do within my marriage and with my husband. And it is such a blessing to me that I want other people to have that. And I want them to be able to know that when you disagree or you have differences of opinions, it is not a curse, or it is not a sign of failure in your marriage. Instead, it's a sign that there's something that needs to change and you have an opportunity. In fact, we had to take a survey and we asked, conflict is like, I don't know if you guys saw that on the Facebook pages, people were like posting it on Facebook, but conflict is like, and almost everyone said conflict is like war, conflict is like, painful to my heart, conflict is all sorts of different things. One gentleman who I surveyed said conflict is like, is like an opportunity. And I thought, awesome, it is, it's an opportunity. And in marriage, we have lots of opportunities. And so that's where I'm focusing my interests.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a long spill.
No. That's awesome.
I'm glad you brought up that communications class because I took it last semester, and that's what's geared me towards addressing communication problems, because I absolutely loved what I learned in that class. And since I'm actually going into, I'm not going into counseling and therapy, I'm actually going into advocacy, so public speaking and things like that. and kind of the political realm. And I noticed that not only the communication within families, but trying to communicate with society about families in the first place to even get started is a conflict. And that exercise right at the beginning was so inspiring, knowing that conflict is really an awesome thing, because it's because people have two differing opinions, and you have to come to the middle. And it's interesting when you're communicating to society about how important families are, to a society where they're redefining family all the time, and they're redefining morals in general. And you're going to love that class. Absolutely love it. And have you gotten into the box one? How to get out of the box yet? Yeah.
Yes, we had to read that first week. Love it. I actually ordered the book online afterwards. I was like, I need this so I can mark it up. So
that's what's been so fascinating about this process of learning is, you see marriage and studies, but you have to take that statistical math class, and you have to take, well, you don't have to, but it is a choice to take this communications class. I mean, the Lord really knows how to train up whoever's willing to, come do it.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, isn't that what we're doing? Those of us who are in marriage and family, we want to help other people, and to have the tools to be able to do that will bless us, and to bless them, bless the people we want to help.
Yeah,
for sure. And I think Gottman talks about that too in his marriage counseling. I'm trying to remember. I have his book here.
I have like 4 of his books. Which one?
Marriage, yeah. He talks about that, and just learning how to have conflict within your marriage and have it like on a rate. Like, people who don't fight are not necessarily healthy, like, at all, and because they just hold things inside and they don't express what they're feeling. That's not healthy to do, and that's not healthy to do in families either. You're gonna fight with your children. I have a 4-year-old, and we fight all the time. We have to learn what she's thinking, and she has to learn what I'm thinking, and we have to be able to come to an agreement, or else it's not a healthy relationship. So it's definitely a good one to remember.
Okay, so one of our questions was, when teaching family life education, what are some potential problems an educator slides into providing therapeutic remediation? What do you guys think?
Hold on.
Is that in group 1 or group 2?
That's week 2.
Okay. Where did I write that?
I know that in week 2's reading, one of the big things it said that was a problem was that a lot of the classes are too short. And I thought about that a lot with these classes, because we're going to be teaching our courses so close to Christmas and Thanksgiving time and holidays. It's going to be really hard to get people to come to 4 different workshops, which is kind of daunting to me. And yet at the same time, 4 workshops statistically is not going to make as big of a difference as a longer session. And so that's a big problem to me. What do you guys think about that?
Well, the thing that in all our reading, we're told that we're not supposed to go therapeutic, period. To remind ourselves that our job is preventative and education. And if we get in therapeutic, first of all, we're just getting in a whole...
We're above our pay grade.
Yes. And apparently it could be against the law, if I understand it right, because that's the problem we're having with the... they're putting a website. The BYU Marriage and Family Studies is putting up a website that we're creating, and every time somebody gives a suggestion on the therapeutic part, they're like, no, we would get in a lot of trouble if we have any signs of therapy here. We only have 1 page of sources to go to. And so I thought that was interesting, that we do have to find that fine line and remember that we're preventative in education. So that you get into trouble if that happens.
I actually wrote down preventative. You said that earlier, and I wrote it down, preventative. Remember, preventative. Because I'm talking with blended families, which is actually, to me, it's a harder group to find, because I'm not just saying married couples. I'm saying I want people who have come from previous relationships, and that's a little bit harder to find that group. And so this week's reading actually was really helpful, as it talked to me about how to broaden that and to invite people who are also affected by blended families, who maybe aren't blended families themselves. And I appreciated that, but I keep thinking to myself, what if they ask me questions that aren't like, what do I do about this? My husband and I had this fight. What do I do about this? Like, how do we keep it on preventative? How do we keep ourselves from going over that line and, I don't know, offering opinions that we're not educated to give, or opinions we're not educated to give?
Have you taken your 360 class yet? So it teaches you what to do under a crisis, but then it says what are sources that you can give to the people. So, having those sources on hand, so when you get the question, say, I'm not able to answer that, but here's the source to it.
Yeah,
I love that.
So aside from all the statistics and the research, we got to make sure we have 2 or 3 pages of all the resources, which means we have to figure out what those resources is in our community and internet and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking of doing that same thing, because I was like, oh crap, like what if if we open this up to any questions, or if we're doing activities and they ask you something like that, and I'm like, oh, so you have to I was like, okay, so I'm going to have a handout that has everything that I'm talking about, like source-wise, and then you have other sources that you can go to, just like you said, just sources that they can go to if they do have more serious issues, because I'm like, you can't prep for every question in a 2-hour 1-hour workshop. You just can't ever get there. And so obviously, you just have to have like a either a handout or something that you can post on, like a PowerPoint or something. They could write down a source if they needed it, but that would be hard.
I like how you said also write down what you're doing, because if somebody asks a question, instead of you, even though you've already given the information and the scholarly, what we're using scholarly, you can actually, this it only stood out because this is what I do with my seminary students. I'm like, don't give your opinion first. I want you to say what Jesus Christ would say, it is written. And so having that hard copy in front of them and in front of you, you might be able to just turn down to your sheet and say, oh, well, Gottman says, or that was, thanks for that idea.
That is great. No, that's very helpful, because that was something I was concerned with.
Right, because you might be able to refer to the materials you have right in front of you, rather than thinking what you have to say as the instructor, but just turn down to your notes and say, well, it's said right here, da da da.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, okay, our last question was about our target audience, and they really just wanted to know, why is it so important or so critical that we identify the problems that apply to our target audience?
Oh, I got lost again. Are we still in week 2?
Yeah, that's stage 1. Sorry, I just kind of paraphrased. This is our last question.
That's okay.
For me, the most important thing with target audiences is just that if you're not presenting to our target audience, or if you don't do the work to find one, then the people who come, or if people come, they're not necessarily going to listen to what you have to say, because it doesn't apply to them. I don't want to go to a workshop talking about single people, because I'm not single, and it doesn't really apply to me anymore. Even though maybe some of the information might apply, it really won't be something that I listen to. So I think it's the hardest part, because you're trying to find a select group of people, especially for you, Tara, where it's just blended families. That's really difficult to find a group and be able to range. Well, maybe a child or like a person who grew up in a blended family wants to come learn about it, so that they can have those same problems, affect them in their marriage now, whatever. But to target that audience and to market to them would be difficult, because you'd be like, well, if you're a blended family, or if we're in a blended family before, or if you're, something like that is kind of difficult. So
how do you put that on a poster?
Yeah, I guess a poster.
That's a big poster.
I've been thinking about that a lot. In fact, when I was reading chapter 16, they kind of talked a little bit about that, and I was thinking, we have a lot of single sisters in our ward. I was in the Relief Society presidency 3 years ago, and one year we had 7 divorces in that one 1 year in that 12-month period. And all of those sisters are still in our ward, and we have more that have come to our ward since. And I think a lot of these women, it may be fearful to them to think of re-entering marriage and going down that path again. And could a workshop on blended families and ideas of how to do it maybe ease some of those concerns? It could. And so I like the idea of including singles in that as well. Singles who are mothers who are considering blended families in the future. So that gave me that idea, and I was like, I like that. I like the idea of being able to help them. Honestly, I chose my topic because there was a sister in our ward who is remarried, and her husband and her just went through the temple, and they are just the cutest things, but they have had a hard time blending their family. And she's asked me a lot of questions and said, what are you studying? And tell me how to do this. And I'll say, I don't really have all the answers. And so I asked her, if I could teach a marriage class on anything, what would you want to know? And she laid out some things that she would want to know. And I took that and some of my own ideas and decided what I was going to teach. So I'll have one person attend.
And you noticed, because you got that opinion, you were able to immediately. It's funny how I just watched you come to your focus of what you're going to do because of the conversation. And I think that's why it's important to know your target audience, because we just moved, and we came from Portland, Oregon to this tiny town 40 miles out called Vernonia. And in Portland, it's way, way liberal there. And if I ever wanted to present something, I would have to know what my thoughts are, what the thoughts are of that target audience in order to do what I'm doing. Unlike this small town that's found itself a little more conservative. And also even wards, if I were to go back to my ward there, the dynamics are different. There's lots of apartments. We're right in high tech there. What are their conflicts are different than a small town where society is a little different, and we're in a small branch, and it's old timers, and they've been here forever and not in the outside. It's just how much research we have to do. So the first thing I did was I did talk to the Relief Society president, and I said, when you have people talking to you, where's their struggles in communication, period, within their families? And with the with the branch president, who happens to be my husband, I'm like, what are the struggles of the youth with their relationship with parents? And then, of course, I went to the superintendent, and I said, what do you notice is the conflict between communication with parents and children? And it helped me target really what the problem is, so that I can figure out if I'm preventative from a first bad situation or preventative from a situation getting worse. So
wow, that's great
to find that focus, because when I don't know if you guys are like me, but it's like I don't even know where to start. But when I started talking to people, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I see that there's a theme in this small town. And it's interesting because the theme is within the church and the community and the school. It's like a dynamic in a small town compared to the big town and the big wards. And
you know what, that just makes me think of testimonies, like how when you go up to bear your testimony, often you don't know what you're going to talk about, and then you get up there and suddenly you find a focus and you're just in on it because the Spirit's testifying to you, this is what you're feeling, this is where you are right now. And isn't it amazing how that can happen for us when we're educating ourselves and we're working hard to be able to accomplish something, how that Spirit can actually help us focus in on that as well. I love that.
Yeah.
And moving on to chapter 16 on this week, we kind of have covered this a little bit, but what thoughts and insights did you have about marketing family life education? What were some of the things that maybe we haven't talked about yet?
I was just telling Tara that I'm only halfway through that chapter for the week, so.
Yeah, it's a long chapter.
Yeah.
One thought I had, I tried to market once before. I was trying to do a dance workshop in my husband's parents' town. They live like in Bear Lake, and it's this little town right on the end. And they, like his sister, who's joined the dance team and everything, was like, oh, we need like a workshop, for the summer. We need someone to come in. And I was like, oh, okay, that'd be great. Great money maker. We could go do that. And there's tons of girls that wanted, that were saying that they were interested and they've done it before and all this. And so I was like, okay, this should be pretty easy. So we made like a few posters and posted them like in the junior high. And when I think about that, I'm like, that was so stupid. Like, why in the heck did we market to the junior highs who don't like look at anything beyond, you know, their scope of like walking to their class?
Or they may look at it and go, oh, that's nice, but their moms and dads are.
It's like, well, yeah, and then they're going to go home and be like, oh, there's this workshop, and the parents will be like, how much is it? Where is it at? And then they're like, I don't know. You know, like, that was so stupid. Why did we do that? And so nobody in attendance, we didn't get, you know, like, it was just a total waste of, you know, I was like, if we would have done that, like, even gone to the ward and been like, look, you know, I'm a trained ballet teacher. You know, we could have done it so much better if we just basically switched to who we were marketing to, because it would have, you know, they had the interest, we had people to do it, we had the space, we had all the stuff in line, and it was just simply who we marketed it to. And it was like one little mistake is just so mind-blowing to me that it didn't click earlier, but, you know, you learn from things. So anyway, I just noticed with marketing, you have to, like the same thing with target audience, you really have to pinpoint who you're marketing to, figure out what they're going to be like. You know, parents just want to know how much, where it's at, how they're going to get their kids there, blah, 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 and be very specific that way. And so that was a good eye-opener learning lesson that I've gone through.
Well, and if you're marketing to an audience of teenagers, your best means is to be able to start some kind of text messaging forwarding thing, or some kind of social media. Yeah, not, you know, do a Snapchat, right, make it disappear, and then they'll be all interested in it. You know, there's got you got to think like a teenager does. Isn't that interesting though that you should say that? My niece is a photographer, and she is amazing. She started taking photos at 16, and her photography at 16 was better than any of the professionals I was hiring to take my family photos every year. And she's now in her 20s, and she's gone to school and for photography, and she's so talented. And yet she's in Utah, so getting there's such an influx of photographers in Utah and so many creative people there that she doesn't often get noticed. So I thought, hey, come out to Texas where I am. People are paying, you know, $600 for sessions like what you're offering for $200, and this is, come here and I'll get you started. So I went on some social media sites, and I said, look, this is my niece, this is some samples of her work, this is what she does. If I can get enough people signed up to be interested in having a session, she will come out and she can do sessions, and we will do it for this reduced price, and it's a great thing. Well, guess what? No one was interested, not one person. And I was shocked. She was so inexpensive. I'm showing you, okay, this is what my kid really looks like. This is what my kid looks like with her. You know, like, can you believe this is really my son? Like, this is how talented this woman is. And she got that shot in a first try. We weren't there for hours, you know, like, it's amazing how good and talented this girl is. And people were not interested. And I realized my issue, or the problem is we were underpricing her. Because we were saying she was less expensive. People assumed that meant she wasn't as good of quality, and they weren't interested. If she was priced higher, we would have had a whole slew of people interested in her. And so I've been thinking about that. We're not, our classes are free, and so that might mean that people will look at it and say, this may not really be of value because these guys are just students and it's free. And so how do we overcome that? Like, how do we say it's a value and even though it's free?
And that leads me to what I initially wanted to say was, you know, friends who know you and community members that know you, you kind of, you leave out the unknown because you're going to talk to them about it. And so when other people hear from it, they'll already have that connection. Like, oh yeah, we know that Katie Cook does this in the community, and she's going to be doing this. So those connections, those personal connections, I think will make a huge difference just in the beginning. But back
Well,
to
in our reading in chapter 16 said that as well. They did say the best form of marketing is through personal connections or through face-to-face. Yeah.
Right. How many times have you shown up for something and you've heard the title of it, but you're not sure if it's candles or dishes or whatever they're selling, but your friend invited you, so you go, right?
Yeah. Yep.
There's
Or
a
someone
little
tells
bit
you that
there.
they're like, like this lady's awesome, you got to come listen to her. It's not even like I need to go to this workshop. It's, oh, this lady's, a great, like it's just more like if someone's referring you or if you like have that face-to-face contact, like, oh yeah, she was really nice. She wanted us to come and listen and do that. And you're just personable with them rather than being like, oh, I've taken all these classes and I really know what I'm talking about. Like it's not personable. And just be like, look, it's a family, everyone knows that the family's under attack. Give them a statistic saying this and this coming from whatever, category, and being like, we're all concerned about this. This is something we can all learn from, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
But it's
The
all
personal
about
connections.
personal. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it helps you have the, what's the word? Credible. They kind of help you become credible. But the same thing, I've discovered I cannot market a parenting class. If it has anything to do with parenting class, because they've tried to do it before and it's just not going to work. So even if I have a little bit of that in there, because communication is going to be between parent and child, but I have to be really creative on avoiding it being a parent class.
Well, and I think we've been learning that through our other classes, like especially like our advocacy class talked about how the way we word things is really important. There's certain words that have become taboo, so we can't say those particular words, even though that's what we feel. We have to find another way to present it so that people will hear it. I think you're right with that. If you're saying a marriage class, most people don't want to do that either. Any more than parenting. Yeah, my marriage is fine. What? I am too busy for that.
And then just the opposite. I'm sure Stephanie was laughing when I was trying to get really, really creative on our title, but she reminded me that, well, if you're too creative, then they don't even know what the class is about. So we have to be careful to, not go here, but then not go there and find that another target. So.
Oh, I came up with my title at like 3 a.m. I'm still not sure if I like it. I thought it was brilliant then. And now I'm like,
I love the title that they used in the book that was like, it was on with like babies are introduced into like when you're first having a child and stuff. And their title was awesome because it was like, catchy at the first, and then it kind of described what exactly they meant. Because I was like, I've looked at some titles for different things that people were doing for workshops, and I'm like, what is that even? What are you even talking about? Like, it's just like, bubbles to bubbles. And I'm like, well, what is bubbles to bubbles even talking about? That doesn't even show me. So, yeah, it's hard.
So, in just moving on to chapter 1, it said that we were given various approaches, or we can use various approaches on how we teach family life education courses. We can either be an expert or a facilitator. What would you guys say your approach is?
The one I like the most is probably the collaborative approach, just because I feel, being how young I am with my workshop especially, I'm not necessarily like raise my kids, my kids are young, I'm still, kind of married. I have only been married for 6 years, so I feel like I'm a little bit too young to go in and just give expert opinions on, or even personal experience on dealing with a lot of things. And so I think for me, the collaborative approach will work just because I can give them expert knowledge that I've researched and give them the statistics, give them everything that I can. And then when we're doing activities and things, when people have those, personal experiences or things that they can share, that's always one thing that I feel like makes the conversation actually mean something to everyone. Whether, like if it's someone who's young trying to figure out how to bring it to teenagers, and there's someone that can give their personal experience, that's always helpful for me to be able to connect when there's like people teaching.
I felt the exact same way. I felt like that we do have some expert knowledge that we have gained over the last few semesters, and obviously we're going to be doing even more research on our specific topics as we're working towards getting together our presentations. But I love the idea of being a facilitator, and I also think that, so I'm a story person. I went to girls camp this last year, and I was an age group leader, and I held little teeny devotionals with my girls every single night, and we read the scriptures together, and we talked about certain topics, and I asked their opinions. And one of the girls wrote me a note at the end of girls camp, and she said, "I loved your devotionals better than any others that we saw." And I thought, I put like half the time and effort, if even that what the stake leaders were putting into teaching theirs. But the difference is the girls were participating in mine versus being lectured to. And I always think if you're a facilitator of helping them to go through a process, they're going to learn more, and it's going to resonate more with them. So I like the idea of taking that expertise and turning it into something that they can do themselves, something that they can feel themselves. Giving homework, I think, is really valuable. Giving them things to work on at home, and then talking about what they learned from that experience too.
Yeah. I'm going to be more reach diverse audiences because I'm determined to bring these strong opinions together, especially experience Liberalville over there in Portland and Conservativeville here in Vernonia, and seeing the separation. And when you're communicating with these families, if there's a family that's got these values and this family has these values, I'm just really determined to find that middle. So that would be more of mine. And I think I'd be more of a cross between the facilitator and the critical inquirer, because I want to pick apart. I want to ask questions, but then I kind of have to facilitate that. So when I read about
you're such a seminary teacher.
Well, when they put you through 18 hours of training each year, you're just like, okay, I think I'm getting this down. It's all about the questions. It's all about the questions and why, and how. So, yeah, that's
there's so much power in that, in asking questions, getting people to actually not just listen to you, but to take what you're saying and apply it to themselves to the point that they want to know more and they want to understand better.
Yeah. But do you notice how these all, if you pick one, it kind of leads to the other, and you're really playing the role of all of them at some form, no matter what the focus is what I noticed. Oops. Yeah. So that's what I find fascinating.
I'm just going to skip ahead because
Sorry.
I love it. No, you're good. I was just going to say, I'm just going to skip ahead a little because we're running on a little short on time, and I know you guys probably have other things to do.
Yeah.
Okay. But I just wanted to ask this last question. An important part of family life education is helping to motivate those who work with you. What is needed to motivate people, and what role do you play in the motivation process?
I did not get this far, and I have that question every day with my family, my seminary class, and so I'm anxious. When I started reading, I got really anxious to get into it, so I don't have an answer.
For me, it kind of goes back to what I said in the beginning about just being passionate about what you're trying to teach. And if you're working with a group, whether, if later on in life, if you've got a bigger workshop that you're producing and you have a group of people that are trying to do it with you, and if you're their leader, to motivate something like that, you have to be passionate about what you're doing. You have to bring a game plan. You have to be able to do all those things to lead them. And if you're part of the group, you have to bring quality to the group. You have to be able to be passionate enough to have that information that, I'm passionate about dance, so I know a lot of things about dance, and I can retain knowledge about those things just because, that's something that interests me. I don't necessarily retain knowledge about math because I don't really like it, and I don't remember algebra, I don't remember chemistry, all that stuff, because I'm not something that like if I would try to teach that, I'd be like, okay, let's learn 1+1. You know, like I just wouldn't be passionate about it. So if you're gonna do something to motivate others, you have to be willing to put in the effort and to be passionate enough to lead other people to do that.
Well, and I think you touched on something really important there when you said passionate with education, with things that you know what you're talking about as well. Like if we come in, have you ever talked to somebody who's really passionate but they really have no idea what they're talking about?
Yeah.
Like, I've had people who are seriously fighting me on a topic, and I know this is right, and they're spouting stuff that I'm like, where did you even hear that? That's not even true, you know?
Yeah.
And I usually don't, I'm so non-confrontational. I don't even go there. I just go, well, and in my brain I go, poor you, you know? But that's probably not very helpful. But if we are passionate about something and we have the information to back it up, we have the statistics, we have the knowledge, we have the studies to prove what we're saying, then it is so, it's well rehearsed, it's well prepared, and then it will be well received. So back to girls camp this year, in 2017 I'm in charge of girls camp, the whole thing. And I had to find us a camp because we don't have a church camp, and negotiate prices with people and find our activities that we were going to be doing, and I had to get all of this arranged before school started in the 7 weeks that I had off in the summertime. And so I'm in Texas, and I was driving 4 hours one direction to check out camps that way, and then the next day I'd drive 4 hours the next direction, and I was up and down and all over the place talking to actual people, and then also spending time on the phone, and I was doing all of this education. And then I had to come before the Young Women's Presidency and be like, okay, this is what I have researched. These are my top ideas. This is the one I want to do, and this is why. And as I presented everything, I found myself getting passionate and getting excited about it. And I'm like, these are the things that I want for the girls to get. This is what I want them to do. And then they asked me about my ideas for theme, which, by the way, they told me I didn't even have to worry about theme until January. And my heart, as I had been researching these things, had come up with a theme, and not just come up with a theme, but had ideas of how to give this theme in a way that the girls would get excited and would feel the spirit. And I started to share my ideas. And as I did, the spirit just was so strong in the room. I was like so excited to share my ideas with them. And when I finished, they approved the highest budget they've ever approved for girls camp. I got the exact camp I wanted to go to. We're doing all of the activities I wanted to do, and my theme was approved. And then our president was so excited about it when she presented it to the men for the budget approval. They immediately approved it as well. And so, because I'd done my research, can you imagine if I would have gone in there and said, I want to spend more money than we've ever spent before, and it would be morally fun. Like, no one would have been excited about it. No one. Instead, they were all like, I cannot wait for this. This is going to be so exciting. I can't wait to tell the girls what we're doing. It was contagious. And so, but I prepped really hard for it beforehand. And that's what we're doing over the next few weeks, is we are prepping like crazy so that we can be passionate about it. I'm wondering if there's a way, like when we're advertising, to be able to contain that and I want to do a video and be like, listen, this is what this class is, versus setting up a poster and say, this is going to be amazing. Come and learn about this because it is going to be awesome. And I just think that, watch for it coming on Facebook soon.
I know.
My little personal video of how exciting it's going to be to take my class, because that passion backed with education is so contagious.
Uh-huh. Well, I like that you kind of like coupled passion with even teaching with the spirit, because I think when you are trying to use your talents and you're trying to find things that you're interested in, then the spirit's going to help you learn. If you're obviously if you're teaching something that the Lord wants to move forward, obviously families are central to our doctrine. There have to be strengthened in order to stand the fight. You know, He's going to help you. Whoever needs to hear it, even if it's one person, like the lady that you're kind of like inspired by, it's like He's going to help her learn. Even if it's that one person that comes to your workshop, one person's better, to benefit them and to help them. You find the lost sheep and you find, one person's better than zero. So that's awesome that you can, like if you couple the passion with teaching with the Spirit, it's going to, it's going to move, it's going to go forward somehow. So that's cool.
Yep, I just added in my book, how would the Lord market this? So
I love that.
But two things that came to mind just really quick was when I watch motivational speakers or workshop speakers, I noticed that when they, like you said at the beginning, when you have a passion, but you also know what you're talking about, they'll make me interested in something I've never been interested in before, and it pulls you in. And so,
like
so
a
that's
TED Talk.
one approach. Yeah. And then another is, if we can't relate or they can't relate to us, thank you. If they're like with my seminary class, if they don't relate to what I'm talking about and I don't come to their level, and that's probably the most important part of why we have to understand our target audience so that we're at their level of where they're at and so that they can relate. So that's why I like to, questions are the best, because since we get to practice a little bit and we can have opportunity to practice either on each other or on whoever, asking those questions, when you start to hear their stories, you're like, oh, okay, this is where they're at. So I need to find something to relate to that, and we need to relate a little bit, and probably just making that. Oh. Those are just the two thoughts I have. You have to relate, and then you do have to have passion, because when you relate, they'll listen, and when you have passion about something, and we're talking about people, it does. I like the word. Somebody said contagious. One of you said contagious. It does get contagious. Yeah. So.
It is.
Oh, and
like those kids.
That's what's awesome about all the media we have, you guys, is you can put a video on Facebook and you can put something in the newspaper. You're going to be able to have all aspects, and you can see how they all respond to it. So that'll be cool.
It's going to be fun. Fun and scary all at the same time.
Yeah.
I do believe that by the time we finish this class, we're going to be proud of what we've accomplished. And I love that. I like that there's going to be something that I can say, I did that. I like challenges. I hate them in the time that I'm working on them, but I love looking back and saying, I did that. It's like a runner who takes a really big hill and they're like, oh my gosh, that's so hard. And you get to the top and you're like, oh yeah, I did that.
Yeah.
So, well, you guys are awesome. I'm going to go ahead and stop our broadcast. And then if you have any questions that you want to talk about something you might be struggling with, we can talk for just a second afterwards.
Awesome.
Go.